Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Karl Lashkari. He is a men's leadership coach. And so for many of you who are looking to build your legacy, you may be male or you may have family members who are looking at what is your life all about and how are you going to go about achieving what it is that you have set out to achieve. Karl is a former management consultant and currently a leadership coach for particularly men. And this follows a 3-year journey that Karl had following an illness that he had, and where he began to realize the importance of aligning his mind, emotions, nervous system, and physical body and to gain balance. So, Karl, I'm going to have you just tell the audience a little bit about your experience, what you were going through, and what got you to what you're currently doing today.
Sounds great. Thanks for the introduction, Lois. I graduated from college in 2007, University of California, Davis, and I started with a finance degree and worked in the world of hedge funds and asset management for the first 7 or 8 years of my career. And then I moved to technology, working for startups in the Bay Area, and then took a role as a management consultant and was quite successful in my career, getting the promotions, being able to, pretty much have an early success in my 20s. And when I took this role as a consultant, it really was a lot of what I had dreamt of growing up. It was, traveling around the country, getting to work on interesting technology projects, on weekends flying out to Miami to scuba dive and salsa dance, and really working the work hard, play hard lifestyle. But it really was a lot on me, on my body physically. I was going through a lot of stress, constant stress, working 70 plus hour weeks, getting on projects where I was, learning and producing at the same time, growing a new practice while also delivering for clients, and just a lot of different balls in the air. And as much as I loved the idea of it, it was the vision of what I always wanted in a career. The day-to-days were difficult on my body. And eventually my body said no, it crashed. I ended up waking up getting symptoms that initially I thought were the flu, but I would get intense body aches, net down, strong fatigue, dizziness, and cognitive issues. And it would last about a week or two. And then I would snap back to normal. And, because of so many responsibilities that I had, I didn't really investigate it as much as looking back I should have. And it continuously happened about 3 or 4 times. I thought I was just getting the flu. And then the 5th time it happened, it stuck. And I wound up having these symptoms, really bad body aches, fatigue, unable to walk, unable to get out of bed for about 6 to 8 months. The only time I left the house was to go to doctor appointments using a cane. And there was even a span of a couple months where I had to crawl to use the bathroom. And there started my journey where I had to drop everything, work, hobbies, everything, and focus fully on getting my life back. And, the medical system wasn't able to help me too much. I was given a couple medications, which helped a little bit, but overall, not a lot, no answer. Saw about 12 plus different specialists. And there started my journey of biohacking and just working, going through the spiritual world, meditation, breath work, yoga, all kinds of different things, visualization exercises, and men's work. And all these different things I picked up, every 4 to 6 months, something new would click. And then I get a little better. Something else would click and I'd get a little bit better. And right now I still work through a little bit, but I'm about 80% better. I have my life back. I have a thriving men's group business and network out here in Tulum, a large network of friends, and able to be dating again, able to hang out with friends again, flying back to the US to see my family. And yeah, it's just been an amazing journey of self-realization. And in the process of healing, I've just been so much aligned with who I am as a person, been aligned with my purpose, been aligned with my heart, my emotions, and really am able to now be in a place where I can speak my truth, set my boundaries, and lead from a place of intrinsic knowing and intrinsic motivation, as opposed to being impacted by the outside world.
So, Karl, what were the things that began to turn your world around specifically? Mindset, meditation, yes, many people do those things, but what was it about them that really began to shift you?
Yeah. So specifically, with my condition, which is called chronic fatigue syndrome, and it's similar to the family of autoimmune conditions. It's primarily based on nervous system dysfunction. So meditation alone allowed me to kind of slow down things because I was just so wired. Little sounds, little light sensitivity would bother me intensely. So meditation allowed me to kind of calm that down a little bit. Breath work was one of the biggest first steps in terms of being able to send oxygen to my extremities, because I was unable to walk at that point. And then I started to find that when I was doing breath work, specifically a modified version of the Wim Hof method, I was able to start to process oxygen more efficiently to my legs and be able to start walking again. And it also helped reduce the pain levels. Another thing I found to be very, very useful is heart coherence work. And that's opening up the heart and increasing the energy in the heart and turning those dull ways of being to more vibrant, charismatic ways of being, turning those negative thoughts to more positive thoughts. And when I do those practices regularly, I always see an improvement in my symptoms. Outside of that, done plenty of things such as float tanks and Epsom salt baths and saunas, and all of that has been useful as well. But in terms of, those are more of a short-term fix. In terms of the longer-term growth, I'd say breath work, heart coherence work, meditation, and emotional expression through men's work have been key.
So, Karl, you right now are building a community, or communities, I should say, for men. Tell the audience a little bit about what it is you're trying to build and what your mission is relative to that.
Yes. So men's work has been instrumental in my recovery. So much of the depression, the fears, all the things that I went through that led to my illness were simply a product of me having a lot of narratives and stories in my head and feeling very isolated, that it was just me. And the one thing that men's work really, really did for me is it presenced me to the fact that we all have stuff going on and we all have things we're working through with our thoughts, with our emotions, with maybe not being exactly where we want to be in our life, whether it's something in our relationship or in business or whatever it be, health-wise. And to be able to walk into a container of 30 to 40 men who are all there to see you, to feel you, to earnestly grow. They're there for their personal development. They're there to be a better version of themselves so they can be stronger leaders in the world. And they can, support you and you support them, and they can sharpen you and you sharpen them. That was instrumental for me. So what I've done is I've created a men's work network right now here in Tulum, where my business partner and I have a community of about 200 men, and we have 30 to 40 people show up once a week. And we just go deep into the issues of how can we show up better as men to be stronger leaders, to create the world that we want, right? To create a more united world, to create a more thriving world for the collective. And, sow all these divisions that are present in our society and within our lives and within ourselves. So it's really about showing up powerfully, but with heart. And we, like I mentioned, we have this community in Tulum, and we'll actually be building another community in Medellin, Colombia in the next few months, and looking to build communities all over the world. And the intention is, there's a lot of people who know how to make money, right? There's a lot of people who know how to have success. That's the easy part. But can we have success while creating real world impact that make people's lives better, the larger collectives better? Can we follow our true intrinsic motivation and our hearts, essentially, to create beyond our limitations, to build businesses, to build organizations that are beyond what the structure has told us is possible and not possible, but truly following ourselves, our true purpose and our internal motivations to create in the world. And that's what we're building here. Is we're building a band of powerful, emotionally intelligent men who are looking to make this world, create in this world in a way that reflects who they are as a human and as a man.
So, Karl, why Mexico and India as your beginning places to build community?
Yeah, so the other place was actually Colombia. But the reason why is because there are a lot of movers and shakers in these places. Right now, a lot of the world is slowed down or shut down. And where I have moved to, Tulum, Mexico, even though there are precautions that we take, there are a lot of creators who have come here to build. There's a lot of wealth managers in the blockchain space. There's a lot of technology developers who are out here who've decided to get away from, the States now that so many jobs are remote. And I'm looking to be at locations where people who are deciding to move past the fears and move past the limitations and work together to create in this time where there's a lot of people who are on pause. Those are locations I want to be at. And Tulum, Mexico is booming in terms of business growth and creation, and Medellin, Colombia is as well.
So those are unusual places, and so it's interesting to hear that that's what you've chosen. You talk about leadership being an inner state. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? What does that mean to you?
Absolutely. To me, I was always taught that leadership was some sort of model, some sort of Venn diagram, bullets of how you should show up. But leadership to me is a very human trait. It is, how can you show up calmly, presently, powerfully, decisively for the people that follow you, and also show up with empathy, with care, with emotional intelligence, with compassion. And leadership is, in my definition, leading initiatives that help the greater good, that help the collective feel better, allowing others who maybe don't quite have the skill or power or motivation or intention or whatever it is to relax into your leadership and trust into leadership. And to me, being a trustworthy individual, being a powerful individual requires to be very in touch with oneself. If you're constantly battling the baggage from your past, emotional baggage that has come up from past relationships or upbringing, if you're constantly battling the thoughts that are coming up in your mind that tell you why you can't do something, why you're not good enough, if you're constantly battling living your life based on other people's terms and seeking approval and taking action based on what other people demand of you, that's not leadership. Leadership is being true to yourself, being present, being grounded, being powerful and decisive, knowing what really motivates you and knowing what makes your heart pain, and having alignment with your brainwave states so you don't get distracted and mind wandering, having alignment with your heart coherence so you're connected to your feeling sets, having alignment with your nervous system so you're not getting thrown around by stress, but actually able to stand grounded throughout stressful situations. That's the inner state that I speak of. It's really being able to be very connected and aligned with yourself, both on a physiological level. I mentioned brainwave states, nervous system, heart coherence, so you can bring a more calm, grounded presence, but also on more of a level of knowing who you are in the world and continuously speaking, thinking, feeling, and acting based on that truth of who you are.
So leadership can be, from your perspective, both in a sense good as well as divisive. Talk a little bit about that and why that is based on your experience.
Yeah. So from my experience, what I've seen is you have a lot of leaders who are exercising their power based off of being something that someone else wants them to be. So say, for example, you're an executive, you're a CXO, whatever it is, CEO, COO, CTO at a company, and you firmly believe that you want your team to have the freedom to create on a project, and someone above you or someone beside you says, no, that's not the case. We have to hit these revenue goals. We have to hit these cost goals. And it doesn't matter, anything else. We have to cut costs, even if it means we cut some of your talented employees, or even if it means we hold back our innovation initiatives. And to me, that's not leadership. And you see a lot of that in the corporate world. You see a lot of companies who everybody is sharing the same message. Everyone is following in line with the same message. And you're seeing a lot of these quote unquote leaders, especially when these goals are financial goals, when they're revenue goals or cost goals, you see them leading through fear. You see them not really caring about people's health, not really caring about people's family situations, but solely focused on, are you staying up till 10 or midnight to get what you need to get done? Because that's all that matters. There's a promotion coming up. If you want it, do everything you need to do, kill yourself to do it. And this old school fear-driven leadership, that needs to go, because there are so many lifestyle related illnesses that are coming up these days. There's just so much competition, and there's always more we can do. So there's that fear-driven leadership. And the leadership which I'm speaking to, that we're creating in the world, is inspirational leadership. It's getting everybody to be so aligned with the company message by having a strong culture, by having empathy and compassion for people's lives, and truly wanting to elevate everybody and listen to their ideas and their creativity and their innovation. And when you have an entire company who feels like they're empowered, who feels like they're inspired to tap into their creativity, to have their true self impacted on what the brand looks like, that's when you get inspirational leadership. That's when people actually want to put in the extra hours, and it doesn't affect their health because they feel empowered and they feel taken care of. And that's the leadership which we're building more of in the world.
So the reality is you don't have a business unless you make revenue, or you hit your revenue goals. You've got to have a profit. So how do you balance that need to grow and to expand the business with the transformation individually? The self-actualization actually is partly what you're talking about, of people within the company. How do you balance those two forces?
Yeah. So what I'm not speaking to is I'm not telling business leaders to give up on their revenue goals. I'm not telling business leaders to say, okay, just make less money and make everyone happy. I'm speaking to the win-win of having both by just doing it a different way. Have we truly explored the way of training our managers, training our executives to be so self-realized that they can tap into their power, but their emotional intelligence as well, to get the best out of their workforce, to have a positive cultivation of extracting the most out of their workforce. It's easy to threaten. It's easy to set unrealistic goals and say, hell or high water, get it done. It's do or die for you. That's just easy to do, right? That's where we tap into our reactivity. That's where we tap into our desperation and our fears to just say, get it done. You have to get it done. I don't care how you get it done. But what about if we train our executives and our leadership teams to have the emotional intelligence and the wherewithal and the calm to be able to actually guide their workforce to extract the most out of them so they are driving revenue? So you have everybody at 100% who are excited and motivated and tapped into their creative states and empowered to grow revenue for the company. So we're not talking about sacrificing revenue. What we're talking about is doing the inner work to be able to lead in a different way that will actually bring in more revenue because you're maximizing your workforce. The challenge is it's not easy to drop into these states. It's easy to blame, deflect, and project. It's not easy to be a conduit for your team. I mean, what is a leader at the end of the day? A leader is a facilitator, right? A leader facilitates and gets the most out of the people who follow them. So how can we be leaders who get the most out of people we follow them rather than actually getting people to operate below their potential by not inspiring them?
So do you have a process you walk people through to be able to achieve this?
Yeah, I do. So I have a program, which our next round is launching on May 3rd, and it's called Elevate. And basically, it's around elevating your inner state so you can be that calm, charismatic leader. And the process is really to simplify it in 4 steps. The first is clearing the emotional blockages, the stuck emotions, the traumas, the things that make us react when we don't know we're going to react, the things that make us paralyzed when maybe we want to be motivated, but we realize we're lethargic. It's all these stored emotions that come from past experiences that most people, and especially men, do not express and hence do not release. So it's releasing a lot of the stuck emotions that cause us to paralyze, that cause us to act from an incongruent place. The second step is to think beyond our limitations. And I have a process of several exercises to get us to really realize what thoughts are real thoughts, intentional thoughts. What thoughts are unintentional thoughts? What thoughts are just our mind wandering because our mind is just another sensory organ. It churns out 50 to 80,000 thoughts a day. So being able to think beyond the limitations of our thoughts and connect with our goals, connect with our purpose, and create space for thoughts that align with our best self. The third piece is getting our body rhythms back in order. That's getting our brainwave states out of the beta, which is the overstressed state, to more of an alpha state where creativity and calm is. Getting our nervous system more in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest part of our nervous system. So realigning our body rhythms to get out of that overly burnt out, overly stressed mode that most people in leadership positions are in, and getting back to a place of calm neutrality. And then the fourth and final step is elevating the emotional state through what I call heart coherence work. And that's bringing more positivity, joy, excitement naturally in our bodies. And this is through training our inner bodies from getting away from the fear-based, negative, stoic way of being to a more charismatic, optimistic way of being. And this is a 12-week process, which includes, education, the science behind all of these process. I went deep into the neuroscience when I was recovering from my healing process. And then daily practice is the key. We're not talking about just another information dump. This is about training our nervous system, training our emotional center so we can show up as more of our true self and unwire all of those things, the patterns, the limiting beliefs, and the emotions that we've picked up over the years. And, this is a tried and true process that I've had several clients who've strongly benefited from. It's changed their lives. And this is the process that I created in recovering from my chronic illness.
So, do you have any data that shows the impact on companies when people return back to their companies, or how do you explain results when you talk about this to potential clients?
Yes. So, there have been studies done around, I believe, the University of Indiana, and I don't remember the exact figures, but around how an empowered and healthy workforce, how much productivity goes up due to absenteeism going down. I don't know if you're familiar with the word absenteeism, but it's basically people who show up at work and end up getting distracted and going on Facebook, and they're actually not taking days off. They're at work, but they're not fully mentally and physically there, or they're physically there, but not fully mentally there. And I believe the stat was something around a 20% rise when people feel empowered and healthy in the workplace. And in terms of metrics around what I've seen, I'm someone who I believe in results, and the people who I've worked with have seen results. The people who I have met on my journey who have not necessarily worked with me but done similar such work have seen results. They've found that they are in relationships that are more fulfilling and satisfying. They have found that they're way more productive in the workplace. And, this isn't something I've done a study on, but this is something that I've received a lot of feedback on.
So, Karl, over the next 5 years, where do you see yourself heading?
In the next 5 years, I see that there's one thing that's important to me. And, this goes back to the men's work piece. The reason why I'm focusing on doing this for men, even though it would apply for everybody, is because men tend to, when men suffer, they suffer in isolation. When men don't reach their potential, when they're caught because of their emotions that aren't released, when they're caught because of their limiting thoughts, it's because they're living in isolation. So in 5 years, I would like to see at least 8 to 10 communities of men's work in big cities, including the bigger cities in the US, New York, Miami, San Francisco, LA, where we have communities where every man knows that when he's feeling down, when he's feeling like his health is going down, he's feeling burnt out, he's feeling stuck or trapped in his life, whether it's his relationship, his business in general, that every man knows, most men know that there's an outlet, that there's a place you can go to connect with other men and to figure this out. Men's work to be normalized, men's work to be accepted, men working on their vulnerabilities, their fears, their suffering, being celebrated and appreciated, and not looked down on as, oh, he's weak or anything like that. So I would like the narrative to be changed around vulnerability as a way to empowerment for men and business leaders in the world.
That would be a beautiful thing, wouldn't it? Karl, our time is almost up. Things that we haven't talked about that you would like to make sure the audience understands or knows.
Yeah. I think the first thing is somewhat to what I just said. Men's work. If you're not familiar with it, I highly encourage, whether it's through our programs or someone else, somewhere else is fine too. I encourage you looking into it. This isn't something that's just, we talked about the emotional intelligence, we talked about the vulnerability piece, but there's a lot of empowerment and there's a lot of really understanding yourself and stepping into your power that comes from it. So I recommend everyone look into men's work to at least get an idea of what it is. And for anyone that's interested on learning more, you can, follow me on Instagram, go to my website, karllashkari.com, launching a program on May 3rd around elevating your emotional state. I talked about the process a little bit earlier. And anyone who's interested in learning more, that's a 12-week virtual brotherhood program. Feel free to check out karllashkari.com/elevate.
Got it. So, Karl, thank you so much for being with us today. Enjoy those last days you have in Mexico before you come back to San Francisco. San Francisco's weather is usually nice, but not as nice as I think where you are in Mexico right now.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I'll be coming back and looking forward to it. And yeah, Tulum's been amazing.
Thank you so much for being with us on Building My Legacy podcast today. And Karl, thanks to you and those of you who are listening. Thank you for being with us. Be sure to remember to visit our website at buildtomorrow.com and our social media sites as well. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me, Lois.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.